Hello everyone, GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. It is time for your Friday recap episode. We've got several friends of the pod on the show today. So first up, we have Zeneca for our favorite recurring segment, Moment of Zeneca. We have Gavin Purcell, partner here at Overpriced Media, fan favorite. And later in the show, I am going to be joined by Benny Giang, who is a crypto OG. He was on the CryptoKitties team. I get into his bio a little bit when he hops on, but he is here to talk to us about ERC-6551, which is an advancement in NFTs that I am incredibly excited about. We talked about it a bit on the show last week, but I am not technical. So I brought Benny on to give us a better, deeper sense of exactly what this is. Fun fact, all of your NFTs, or essentially all of your NFTs, now have their own wallets. This is something that already exists now. Many of us just didn't realize it, myself included. So Benny talks us through what that means, how to find out where your wallets are for your NFTs, and what this future might look like. That's like the last 30 minutes of this episode. I think you're really going to like it. Even if you just want to skip ahead to that, listen to it. I think it's something that we should all be much more aware of and is really the future of the space. Okay, a couple other notes, folks. I am going to be in Miami on June 5th interviewing Avery Akinane and Mags Kala. They are two incredible women who are absolute leaders in Web3 and blockchain technology generally. Mags runs Double Down, which is a consumer Web3 VC fund. Avery is the president of Vayner3. So that'll be an amazing conversation. That's on June 5th. If you are an OPJ NFT holder, you can go to opjtour.com now and reserve your tickets. We are also opening that up to VFriends holders. And so VFriends holders, by the time you are listening to this, you will also likely be able to go on to opjtour.com and reserve your seats. VFriends holders will be able to do it starting Friday, May 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, and then with that, we get into some fun topics today on the show. Pudgy Penguins pumping. We have a good conversation around art blocks and the Sotheby sale that just happened, really diving into why Fidenzas are such a powerhouse. Why did it just get $1 million at the Sotheby sale? I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But of course, we do need to hear a word from our lovely, lovely sponsors who make this show possible before we get into the rest of the show. Y'all know, I think one of the most powerful use cases for NFTs are loyalty programs, which is why I'm so excited about our latest partner, GALXE. That's GALXE. GALXE is a leading platform for building a Web3 community. It is a no-code, plug-and-play solution to create task-based campaigns and loyalty programs. With over 67 million users, GALXE has worked with folks like Optimism, Polygon, Arbitrum, and more than 2,100 other partners with reward-based loyalty programs of their own. And I'm especially excited to announce their latest product offering, GALXE Mint List. Mint List enables NFT projects to issue allow lists based on different user profiles. It's free to use, and projects can then take advantage of GALXE's other offerings, like Task and Quest, which incentivize audience growth and user retention in the long term. Go beyond the mint and keep using GALXE's infrastructure to reward users through on and off-chain actions. GALXE's goal is to help projects grow in an authentic way and help them retain their users and communities over the long haul. And as a user, you can start contributing to your favorite Web3 communities today, joining allow lists through Mint List and earning rewards, NFTs, oats, tokens, and points. Go to galaxy.com right now. That's GALXE.com right now, or click the link in the show notes to get started. Your Web3 community is waiting. I am so excited to announce that this year, Overpriced JPEGs has partnered with OPENSEA, the world's leading NFT marketplace, built for everyone, creators, collectors, noobs, and experts alike. I'm an OPENSEA user because they have the best selection of NFTs and a truly inclusive view of the ecosystem, supporting 8 chains and 8 global languages. I trust the systems they've put in place to keep the space safe, like copy mint protection, malicious URL detection and removal, robust verification, and more. It's why they are the place to buy, sell, and create NFTs. That's right. You know OPENSEA, you use OPENSEA, but did you know that OPENSEA now has drops? New exclusive projects launch every week from top projects and creators, and you can check them out now using the link in the show notes. They also recently introduced self-serve drops, which is in beta, and allows creators to launch their projects right on OPENSEA. This drops product gives creators access to tools like rich storytelling drop pages, multi-chain support, and drop mechanic customization. The full launch for self-serve drops is coming this spring. So check out the upcoming drops on OPENSEA right now using the link in the show notes and own what moves you. You'll also be supporting the show in the process. We're going to start where we always start, which is just like general vibes check, macro, how we feeling? Things are like, there's hope in the air, folks. How you guys doing?
Generative art season.
Pretty good.
I mean, I'm good. Things looking up.
It's always generative art season in Zenika's world.
This is very true. But now other people are also seeing it. Yeah. But like, the market is a bit bullish.
Like the art blocks bear markets just are so short relative to other bear markets. Like, I guess it was was it last summer when it was really pumping again? I guess.
Yeah.
A few months. The PFP markets have been down for like 2 years, it feels like.
Well, even the PFP market's only been a year. Like last April, PFPs were going absolutely crazy.
That's true.
It's all wild. But actually, so
I felt like things were still. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was going to say they sort of don't work in step with each other. So like PFPs were going really well, but art blocks was like in a bear market. Like early 2022, art blocks was kind of like really, really, and generative art in general is down and out. And then they had like a moment later on, and so like it's cyclical, right? Where it's all an attention economy, and the attention follows one. It can't be on multiple things at once. So it's either PFPs or meme coins or generative art or Solana or Bitcoin NFTs, and like maybe there's like 2 of them, but rarely is everything pumping at once. And so at the moment, it seems to be Gen Art and Bitcoin NFTs are probably the 2 big ones right now.
And then the other 2, I mean, I guess Opepen falling in that art category, and then Oni Force is like, and on the PFP side, and Pudgies. We'll get into all this. A couple other things. What has me feeling bullish today, folks? The Pro Bowlers Association is issuing 300,000 league awards as soulbound NFTs on Avalanche. If that doesn't get your heart pumping and your bags tingling, I want
to know why Avalanche. Like, that's such a weird thing to like pull out of the back pocket. Like, it's like bowlers often go their own direction, but like, what was it about AVAX that kind of brought them?
Did you say bowlers often go their own direction? Is that like a notorious thing about bowlers?
Unique individuals. Pro bowlers are going to come at you. I shared this with Zen before, but my favorite clip ever is this pro bowler. If you Google like best pro bowler strike reaction, it comes up. It's a guy named Pete Weber, and he is just incredible. If you've seen this clip, you know what I'm talking about. They are unique individuals.
Strike to claim it. A strike to claim it. And he got it!
That is right! I did it! That's number 5! Are you kidding me? That's right! Who do you think you are? I am! Get it right!
I guess if you've decided to make your living through bowling, that does say something. You've decided to not care what the rest of society feels or thinks about you.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you've decided to choose Avalanche. I don't know. Maybe they were paid. I don't know. I mean, Ava's definitely, I feel like it's coming up a little bit. And I feel like all these, chains that aren't Ethereum will shell out money to get folks onto their
as a news story. I mean, it's a good press release, right? And who wouldn't want to be associated with bowlers, right?
It brings a smile to my face just thinking about it. We also have, as we've been talking about, Blur obviously being a dominant force in driving what the market is like over the past 6 months, really. We'll just mention here up top, Blend has added Can Pie Pandas and Redacted Remilia, baby. Remilio, right? It's Remilio, but Remilia is the
Milady adjacent.
It's a Milady spinoff thing. And they added Pudgies, who's having quite the week. So no real comment there. We've obviously talked about Blend, but it's so funny. We kind of saw the same dynamics where it's like these projects like pump a little bit and then drop. It's like, I guess it's like the Elon Musk thing. It's like when Elon tweets about something, people buy, not because they think there's actually going to be some sort of sustained pump, but they're hoping to time it just right to like just get the run up and then before it crashes. I guess that's the.
I think we're kind of done with it. I think that I saw a tweet yesterday. I can't remember from who it was, but it was just like clearly pointing out. It might have been Sam. It
was Sam. Yeah.
Basically, he's pointing out the fact that whatever run up there is doesn't happen anymore. Like the run up is like so short, it's not even worth playing. And I think also the tricky thing is. What's good about Blend is that you're seeing it to be I think there's less of a pump and a dump right now because people are kind of figuring out what's good and what's not. There was an update to this too, and maybe you know this. They just updated their loan protocol in some form, which I think makes it harder for you to take out. There's something about it that made it a slightly more difficult thing to kind of game the system, and so I think they're just trying to see what the maturity of that thing looks like. I think ultimately. until we get to a much larger space in this world, I don't know if this is going to have that big of an impact. And right now, it's just a news story when something else comes on it. That's my take on it. Yeah,
and they'll end up onboarding most things. Like, you know, I mention it because I do think that it's good to be tracking this stuff, and it's interesting. And Blur, we obviously need to be keeping a close tabs on because they are such a dominant force in the market, and still, you know, making up a huge amount of market share are. These like air farm traders. I mean, there was a couple cases. You had, I think 150, 170 mutants. You had 350 doodles, and you had like 120 miladies or something get dumped on farmers this week. So like some of this activity is certainly that. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be one of those days, folks. My camera just cut out. So again, luckily most of you listen to this on audio, but for those of you on video, we're just going to it's time for another drinking game. Time for another round of Will Carley's camera last the full recap episode. Okay, well, so we've talked about art blocks a little bit. Oh, there we go. I think what we really need to talk about in the context of art blocks here is the Sotheby's auction of the Three Arrows Capital. Oh, God damn, it's back. It's out again. The Sotheby's auctioned off a number of art blocks pieces held by Three Arrows Capital. Is this a part of a liquidation? Is this part of like a bankruptcy proceeding?
Yeah, okay. And that's actually, I think, one of the reasons why we're seeing maybe art NFTs pop a little bit more, because I think one of the big things that came out of that is the Goose, which is one of the most famous ringers, was part of that collection, which allows people to like kind of, if you know that, Carly, the Goose is the ringer that, so it's part of that collection. And then I think that what this does is just put.
But this is 100% why art blocks is popping. But is this part of a bankruptcy procedure for 3AC?
Yeah. So people that I know have been tracking this for a while. Like they had a really good collection. Right. And so this is stuff's finally coming up to market. I think the other thing is people just forget in some ways. I think there was a Fidenza sale for like $1 million, right? Or something. Yes. I think it was a Fidenza. Like people forget that people value these things, right? And what in my mind, part of what's going on is just like there's just a reminder of like, oh yeah, wait a second. This stuff is actually valuable. And then everybody goes back, they're like, oh, $1 million? Really? I should do that. And like it's just this dumb narrative shift. Like for so long, people just forgot. And guess what? These are actually pieces of art that people have real value in. And I think that's partly what's driving this kind of art movement right now.
I think it's totally what's driving the art. I think it is single-handedly what has driven this resurgence in art blocks. Now we talked about it, right? Art blocks comes back around regularly, like it, you know, and each time I feel like the floor ends up higher and higher, which is why I don't end up buying in because I'm like, oh, 8 ETH, it still feels like a lot of money in a year that I'm getting married in a bear market. But I'm like, which is what the Squiggles were going for, like 8 ETH, you know, before. I'm sure that they're up a little bit more now because a bunch of Squiggles have sold. But
I think they're up to 12-ish, something like that. They went up again. Yeah,
they went up. That's what I figured. The Fidenzas sold for $1 million. And I think the auction overall generated like $2.5 million. So that one Fidenza was almost half of this whole thing. But you're right, the Goose went for a lot. The Goose was the only one that went like way above historical norms.
Yeah. Wait, has the Goose?
I think that's right.
Oh, actually, no, it was an autoglyph. It was an autoglyph.
Yeah, well, actually, this goes into a question I have for Zen, which I want to hear because there's this whole like narrative that I've been seeing about Squiggles and Glyphs versus ringers and Fidenzas. Yeah. Have you been tracking this at all?
Yes,
okay, what is that? What's going on there? Can you explain it?
I mean, I think people look at Squiggles and Glyphs as, I mean, Autoglyphs, the first generative art on chain, and Squiggles, obviously iconic for art blocks, Snowthrow, spawned a movement. And like the narrative behind them both are they were the first. There's a lot more cultural relevance in the minds of some people to what they did and how they moved the space forward. Whereas people look at ringers and Fidenzas as, you know, just quote unquote just projects launched on art blocks, you know, project, I don't know what ringers was, 10 or 15, and then Fidenza maybe the 30th project out there. And so people who seem to think that Squiggles and Autoglyphs are going to have more cultural relevance long term are thinking that in 10 years time, people will look back over the history of all the generative art released and they'll be like aesthetically things that are as equally appealing to them and the masses as Fidenzas. Most people thought of Fidenzas as the first like really incredible, you know, long form generative art project that looks like, you know, traditional art. And people are like, well, now people are releasing lots of great art that looks really great. And, you know, Fidenzas aren't as special. I think Fidenzas are as special and ringers are as special because just, you know, in part because of how great they are as collections, but probably even more so because of how great Tyler and Dimitri are as people and icons and ambassadors for generative art. Like, they've been creating gen art for a very, very, very long time. And there's so many people in the space who, like, yes, absolutely, we wouldn't be where we are today if, Lava Labs hadn't launched Autoglyphs, and if Snowfruit hadn't, created art blocks and launched a Squiggle. But so many artists would not be in the space if it wasn't for Tyler or Dimitri as well. So I think that they're very much in the same category and deserve to be thought. Like, it's a really weird thing being like, what's better, one or the other. But I think, like, if we are sort of like bucketing them in maybe like, tiers or whatever, I really think they're all sort of in the same sort of echelon.
That's interesting. That makes sense.
You say you think they're in the same echelon, but a Fidenza goes for way more than a Squiggle. Do you think like Squiggles are seriously undervalued?
I think Squiggles are always undervalued, but there's a supply thing. There's 10 times more Squiggles than there are Fidenzas.
And I did see a couple tweets of people during this whole kind of like argument around which one is more real, true crypto art or whatever, that people were saying they believe in Squiggles long term, that ultimately they will be worth more than the Fidenzas and Ringers. I don't know if that's true because of the supply thing.
No. And I don't know enough about how art markets work, but it feels like quality does matter to some extent. You know what I mean? Like, people, if you look back, like, people like the Picassos or who, I don't know, insert here. Again, I don't know enough about art history, but like, quality matters to an extent. And I'm not saying that Squiggles aren't quality, because I think they're actually visually cool, but they're visually cool. They're not like beautiful art, I think, by most people's
Come
standards.
for her. Come for Carly, everybody. Squiggle stands. Come for her.
Is that...
No, I agree.
Do you think that's even... I love Squiggles, but do you think that's even controversial? Like, it's just
yeah.
Like, Snowfro would say that. Snowfro would say he was more... He's like more of an experimentalist, who wanted to have a case study, a proof of something, rather than fundamentally an artist. Tyler Hobbs is fundamentally a generative artist. And I do think that distinction matters. And the thing that's so incredible about Fidenzas is that, art blocks, other generative artists, right? You produce a lot of works, then you hand pick the ones you want to be a part of your collections. Tyler was the first one who went into art blocks, which doesn't let you do that, right? Once it starts minting, once the algorithm is locked in, it's locked in, and people are now minting, and you're going to get what you're going to get. And so I forget how big the collection size is, but like, is it 10,000?
I think it ultimately is, right?
999. 999.
Oh, no. Yeah, Fidenza's smaller. Sorry.
Okay, so that's what you're saying, the 10 times more. Okay. But 1,000 pieces that are all so unique looking, yet all look like a Fidenza, yet are all very high quality.
Yeah.
And there are fundamentals there. It was the first, as far as I am aware, of like that. And so I don't know that I buy that Squiggles will be worth more than Fidenzas. And I love Squiggles, and I would love to own a Squiggle, but...
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, no one has a crystal ball. No one can know. I agree. Like, what Tyler did is... It's like really just pivotal in the movement of generative art. And, there were amazing collections of gen art on art blocks prior to Fidenza, Ringers being one of the prime examples, but many others. Subscapes by Matt Deloria is also really fantastic. But to do 900, like, that is exactly like you say. They all look incredible. They're all unique, and yet you can tell they're all part of the same collection. And they look good in different sizes and in different situations,
and they use so many different colors. There's just so many ways where like it could have gone wrong. Like, that's the thing that's so amazing. You have to nail it so perfectly, so that with all the kind of diverse elements that you're introducing in, you didn't get just one that looks like
complete.
You know what I mean? That's sort of like, oh, this is obviously like the worst one. It's amazing.
I think it was Dimitri who said this. I don't know where he said it, but he said in a long form collection of 500 or 1,000, it's acceptable to have sort of one dud. It's like, okay, if you get one in there that just doesn't come out right, that's like, but two is unacceptable. And like, I thought that was an interesting...
Out of 500,000?
No, out of 500 or 1,000. Like, if you run a scale, a collection of art blocks, it's like, okay, you can have one that's like, okay, that just came out weird. But if there's two or more, it's like, okay, the algorithm, you should have tweaked more, you should have bug fixed, you should have spent... And I feel like Fidenzas has zero. And there are a few collections that have zero. And it's just like, It's really, really difficult to do that. And also, when they were released, now we see collections of 1,000 on art blocks all the time. Like, they became the standard. But before Fidenza, a lot of the time you were seeing collections of 400 or 500. And so to release 1,000 that were it was just really impactful.
Yeah, and that's why there's no doubt that this will come to be understood broadly as art, because there is such a skill and a craft to this, and like the best of the best will produce 1,000 and there won't be a single bad one, and that is very hard to do.
I have one last question about this, and this is an interesting just maybe what is art question, which is never the most exciting thing to dive into, but like when you have 1,000 of these things, and by the way, I think Fidenzas and Ringers are both incredible pieces of especially generative art, and it's really something interesting. But you know, it's funny when you compare it to like what they would talk about, like a Van Gogh or a Picasso, right? There's somebody, Picasso did not make 1,000 of one thing that were variations of them. And it's an interesting thing to think about when you talk about supply in art market, right? When you have these kind of Van Goghs, whatever, art that are going for $30 million, and people are like, well, of course, the Fidenzas will go for $30 million at some point too. It is a slightly different thing, right? Because you have 1,000 or 999 of one particular thing, and that artist is going to continue to make art over time. So it's another kind of question around like, yes, generative art is going to be incredibly valuable, but I'm also wondering like, you know, the one of one artist, like when you think of somebody like Xcopy, who's making really incredible one of one art, like that stuff also sometimes feels like it could have a larger, bigger impact on the overall market. And I think those are the things to think about too. Not to say that like these other things are great, but it also has to do with supply. Actually, I think it would be really interesting to talk to somebody in depth about like generative art plus supply and how all that kind of affects the regular art market. I think that could be an interesting interview.
Something I want to riff off on that. I think that the interesting thing is like it's new. We can look at traditional art and try and compare it to like prolific artists who created like Picasso, Van Gogh. They both created a lot of work, but like you said, it was all one of one. And sometimes it was like the same sort of subject matter that, you know, sunflowers or haystacks or this, that, or the other, but it was still one of ones. Generative art it's just new. And so we can't really understand. And there's also like the network effects where you have, you know, like 50 one of ones, you have 50 collectors, and that's just generally going to get less mind space than you have thousands of people who are squiggle holders. Now people are on Twitter, some people have it as a PFP, some people are literally in the email signatures using a squiggle. You know, Snowfro is carrying around like a Polaroid thing in his backpack and printing out squiggles and signing them for people. It's like a movement. It's just different. And so it's hard to say. I agree. I would love to like listen into a conversation from some expert on the supply dynamics, because it's really fascinating and it's hard to know what is quote unquote better, but I don't necessarily think that more is worse.
Okay, Oni, I'm gonna speed run us through a couple things. Oni One Force pumping pretty big this week. They have announced they're partnered with Horizon Labs, which has worked with ApeDAO quite a bit, and they put out a couple of different things. Like they've got this franchise model, I guess now, or that they've got resources now available where if you own an Oni One Force, they will like help support you in building up a business or something around your Oni One Force. Just a couple things like that where they made some announcements really to support their holders, and they've announced that they have this like comeback happening. Go ahead, Gav.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that this model, which I kind of think of as almost like the incubator model, hasn't happened more. I know Doodle Bank kind of tried to do this as well too, but
it's trying.
Me,
I think it's recent.
Yeah. But to me, it's like, why wouldn't you, if you've got a swath of ETH, which may or maybe you don't have, or maybe you've been funded, why not try to take and launch companies from within your company, take a small piece of it and then like raise it up? Because if any of those succeed, it's almost like the VC model, right?
Yeah.
If you're able to seed 20 of the companies that are based on your IP and one of them works and it's a huge success, like you've just helped your company a ton. So like, to me, that's a model that could really work in this world. And when you think about how the idea of how DAOs have been involved and how DAO governance has been involved, like this feels like, I know Nouns also tries this. Now Nouns has had mixed success in this world, but like the more you can actually seed real companies or people that are doing real stuff within your collection just gives you a chance to do it. So I expect this model could take off. The question is just who has the ETH left to do it, right? And this is the big question is people have survived long enough through this time. A lot of people, as Kevin mentioned in the interview with Kevin and Frank and Carly, you know, there's a lot of collections who are starting to feel like they're getting tight on funding, and that's pretty brutal, right? Because there's not very many options at that point. You either sell or you wind down, and it's not an easy thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's an interesting model. I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out, right? Like, it's very hard to be a venture capitalist for a reason, and most don't work. So there is that element of like, is this the right place to put our ETH? Or, are we betting on ourselves as the central team, perhaps, right? And that's, I think, probably the calculus that's getting made there. But I agree with you. I think it's interesting. It's a no-brainer for a doodle bank. Frankly, it's probably a no-brainer for an Oni one that was kind of dead. Dead is not the right word. I mean, they were whatever they were. Like, they were still an ETH or so, I think, or half an ETH. But like,
oh no, I think they went lower. Yeah, they're half an ETH maybe.
Half an ETH maybe. But point being, just like they were, they obviously were not super relevant in a day-to-day kind of conversation way, and so this is a way to bring yourself back. And with something like a doodle bank where that money is supposed to be for the community anyways, and you've earmarked it as such from the beginning, I think it's a no-brainer. Okay, in the spirit of speed running us through, we also have Opepens pumping. I mean, you had 3 new all-time high sales. I think you had one for 14 ETH, one for 15, one for 12 ETH. I mean, we're talking like above 10 ETH sales on this, what was originally a free, or not free, but it was an open edition that was not expensive. And so that is amazing. Congratulations to everybody who got into Opepens early. And, it's classic Jack Butcher. He's doing fun things where you've got these tiers and you've got these 200 sets of 80 a piece, and they're getting morphed into their like final Pepe forms. And I go check out some of the looks of them. I mean, again, it's just kind of classic Jack playing with metadata, playing with gamification mechanisms. I mean, there's a whole component to this where people who hold the Opepens, it's like something like some percentage of everybody who holds needs to vote for this like change to occur, for the change to occur. I don't know if I'm describing this well, but the point is there's a gamification piece to all of this in a very Jack Butchery way. Okay, a couple other things. You know what? I'm gonna say this. 6529. It's season 3 of the meme cards. 6529 released number 100, and then it turned out Zach XBT had written a whole thread about how that person was actually kind of a scammer, and 6529 reverted course and basically swapped the metadata for all of them for a 6529er art piece of artwork. But he did it really well, I have to say. He's got like a long thread he wrote about it. He basically said, like, I will buy back anybody's card 100 if you don't want this, like at double the mint price, so he had like a bid wall up basically for anybody to like sell into if they wanted to get rid of their card 100. And he donated all the proceeds to Zach XBT, or not even donated, but he basically like all the money they had made off of it, he gave to Zach XBT to like thank him for his work. So I really like the memes. I had one meme and I sold it, which I don't necessarily regret because I was not going to be able to keep up with this whole thing and like do it properly. But honestly, I freaking like them. I really think it's a cool thing to collect. It feels like classic trading cards in some ways, and
greatest
I just
Ponzi
like 6529 so much. Okay. Yeah.
Look, I mean that with love, Ponzi. With love and affection. It really is. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my Ponzi. Yeah, for sure. Let me introduce you to a brand new company that I could not be more excited about. Web3 Sense. A Web3 analytics platform that combines on-chain data with social media insights to give you the deepest, most meaningful intelligence into any NFT community. I have tested other analytics platforms out there, but Web3 Sense has the most comprehensive capabilities I've seen in the NFT ecosystem. They apply sophisticated data science to wallet histories to determine behavioral patterns and help shape predictive analytics. In other words, they can tell you which Twitter accounts are actually the influencers in your space. And they can tell you what resonates most within a community by looking at what other communities token holders are involved in. The number of use cases here is virtually unlimited. So whether you're a trader, creator, institution, brand, agency, I promise Web3 Sense has data that you want to see with the deep and actionable insights that you need to build, analyze, grow, start, whatever you want to do within the NFT space and in terms of building a business and a community. Now, they are still in very early days, so they're eager to connect with the community. So if you're interested in learning more about what Web3 Sense can do for you and your business, and you should be, go and fill out the very short form linked to in the show notes, and someone from their team will reach out with more information and an opportunity for a product demo. Trust me, you won't regret it. Pudgy Penguins. People probably know this story by now. Pudgy Penguins launched a physical toy on Amazon. They sold out 20,000 of them very quickly, made $500,000. That is cool, to be clear. And hooray. I think a lot of them were bought up by Pudgy whales and by people in the community. So I want to, frankly, of all the things that Pudgy has done, everything I want to talk about right now, I'm like, okay, cool, they sold it out, but we don't really have a sense of what like the broader market appetite is for these Pudgies, frankly, because it was bought up by insiders. What I do think is interesting is two things. A, the commercial they released, which people have probably seen, which was kind of Toy Story-esque. I really liked it. It was incredibly well done. It was incredibly professional, and it shows that this is a team who can execute something very well. So I loved that. And then the second piece of this, which is to me the bigger thing, is what they're doing with Pudgy World, and the fact that basically they have created this online platform where you can get a soul-bound penguin, and then when you buy the toy, you can get these loot boxes basically within your Pudgy World where you have your penguin. And all of this is done without having to interact with crypto. And then you can have your loot box and you can dress up your penguin and you can, trade, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not doing the world's best job of, I think, painting this picture super well, but it very much feels like the future to me. And so that has struck me even more than selling out the 20,000.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a couple of Pudgies
plushies.
and I've been pretty deep in that ecosystem for not that long, maybe 6 months now. But what's been really interesting to watch with this is I think Luca Pudgy's owner and team have done a decent job of like opening the door to a totally different kind of world around NFTs. And like this idea of onboarding, we always talk about how do you onboard people, how do you bring people into this space. I think this is an interesting way, and it's two-part. One, it's onboarding, but also it's very cheap entry points, right? Like, and some people may not even know they're getting NFT stuff, but they can. And then when they open the door to what's possible there, suddenly they're like, oh, this is pretty cool. Oh, this has real value to it. Oh, and they start to kind of learn about this stuff. Now, I think the beauty of that commercial is incredible. Obviously, I saw a really great, I want to shout out, I think his name is Tecmo_BO. He's one of my friends who's a Pudgy. He showed a picture of his daughter getting one of these toys and like just pure joy coming over her face. And like, that's such a cool experience to have. I think the question will become is like, with collectible toys, it's always that model of like, there's the Funko Pop people, and that's probably the people that will kind of like collect them for money. But then there's also kids who just want to have toys. And like that also goes to what I think Luca and Pudgy's is doing. It's just trying to mainstream the idea of this IP, because when you see a kid actually really love this thing, like that is like a thing that you don't see very often in NFTs. You don't see somebody grabbing like, a PP Pepe and like saying, my PP Pepe. Like that's just not the thing that happens. So it's cool to like see that kind of real world experience use of it too.
Yeah, just after and at VCon, there were like kids with big boxes, like because they were selling the Pudgy toys, and like you just saw them in the wild. And I think what they're doing is brilliant. And I think a lot of it's sort of off the back of the strategy that they launched maybe a year ago or close to it with their Instagram, where like their Instagram has hundreds of thousands of, and also Giphy. They've just got Pudgies everywhere. And probably, I would say the vast majority of people who know about Pudgies do not know anything about NFTs or crypto or blockchain. They've just seen the IP, seen these characters, and like, oh, they're cute, they're fun, I love them, and they'll send gifts to their friends, and then they have literally no idea that there's an NFT company and project behind it, which is genius.
Honestly, one of the most interesting, let's call it concerns or criticisms about this, I would say, and Pudgy World in particular, is why make it an NFT at all? Which I think when you start to talk about a custodial wallet, fiat on-ramping, a soul-bound penguin token, it is sort of like, what's the, like, like at what point? And this is where, for me, there will be this shift at some point where, because the ownership element of this, and to be clear, like the loot can still be sold and transferred and all of that, which is totally a thing that'll happen. But like the interoperability piece, which right now doesn't really matter because there aren't really enough like open worlds that you're moving in and out of as a character. But like the feeling of the internet feeling more like the real world, and like you can move through spaces with your characters and you can move your thing, like it just feels like that will win. And that is such a ridiculous answer to somebody who's deeply skeptical of NFTs, right? Like I'm not going on some mainstream tech podcast who thinks NFTs are stupid and being like, I just feel like that's gonna matter, But like,
well, my question is, here's why are you not doing this? And I've had this thought about myself a lot. I think in some ways it's fear of their reaction to it, because the reaction has been so strong. I kind of agree with you a lot. And one of the things to point out what Frank said again in your interview was like, and Frank by the way, young people like Frank and Luca, both two people that are in their early 20s that know this space well, but also understand as they come up, they grew up with digital collectibles in a significant way that a lot of people older than that haven't. And when you talk about like mainstream tech podcasts, like sometimes they're run by people in their late 20s, in their 30s, or even into their 40s. And like these are people who see NFTs as a kind of a one-off. And I think the interesting thing about people who are like, you know, let's say 12 to 16 right now, like these are people who like have felt this presence in their life, whether or not they've been in it or not, but they definitely understand that digital collectibles are the thing that they signal with or that they use to do things with. To them, yes, physical shoes are important, but they're spending like 80% of their time on in digital spaces. So like, what are the things you're going to signal with them there? Those are digital things. And if you can own those things, it's even better, I feel like.
And you can, the missing piece is like, sure, you can own something now within the confines of a particular platform. And so the psychological shift is feeling like I own it so totally that I can bring it anywhere I want. Mm-hmm. And again, that sounds so minor, I feel like, if you're on the outside who don't find any of this cool. And to me, it's like, it's one of those things where it's just like, look, well, time will tell, right? Like time will tell if the feeling like I can own this the way I own something in the real world will end up mattering to somebody. And I think it will. So that would be my pushback. But I do understand that, especially given that the penguin itself is soul bound. You know, it's sort of like, what becomes what's the different, you know, and it's a custodial thing. Like, what are we doing? Last story before we cut to my interview talking about EIP-6551. Mercedes-Benz is getting in the NFT game, and we are low on time, so I'll say quickly here, there's not too much to say. They haven't really launched anything yet. It does appear like they're doing this quite well. So first of all, their team seems to all be fairly NFT crypto native people. If you go onto the website, it's Mercedes-Benz Next, NXT, and you can see that all of the people leading this charge have NFTs in their profile pictures and have ENS domain names. And also, if you look at their ENS domain name wallets, they like actually collect things, right? These weren't accounts that were set up 2 days ago in anticipation of this moment. So I think that's really encouraging. But the thing that I actually loved the most and thought was most interesting here is they've put out up front that there are basically like 3 kinds of projects they're going to engage in. And I have them listed here. They're taking this 3-tiered approach where there's going to be core collection things, which they're saying is like their team, they're putting their name brand behind it. It's going to build on, one is going to build on the other. And that is the core collection. Then they're going to have these satellite collections, which they describe as like maybe fun things they're playing around with, experiments, not core collection. Maybe they'll have a partner who's on with them, but it's them kind of playing and experimenting. And then they'll have these periphery collections, which is where their core team is not really that involved. It's maybe they've licensed out the Mercedes-Benz name. Maybe they've helped out a little bit, but it's third parties who are doing them. Oh my gosh, I love this. First of all, I think so many native NFT projects could take a note from this and set expectations up front for holders by having a class system of like, I was thinking about, you know, the Spotify announcement that Moonbirds made. And we joked about this on stage when I was with Kevin and Frank, which is that Moonbirds was like, hey, we've got these, you can now access token gated playlists by other Moonbirds on Spotify. And everyone was really mad because they had this feeling of like, I paid $50,000 to get a token gated playlist. And so people were giving them crap for it, right? If that could be in like the satellite category of like, hey, look, this is not like a core thing. This is not like the thing we're expecting to make your collectible worth $1 million, but it's something we're playing around with that we think could have future benefits. Like that would be such a helpful framing for people in terms of how should I think about this announcement? Where does this belong? Is this core? Is this satellite? Is this periphery? I'm like, Mercedes has just come in and set up a schema that I think is better than what like any NFT project has done.
Well, this goes back to, we've talked about B team versus A teams, right? Like we've talked a lot about how sometimes I get disappointed that a lot of the people that are in these crypto projects were B team people that kind of got elevated suddenly to A team status because of what it was and how much these were worth. With Mercedes, you know, we've seen brands attempt this or not attempt this. This is an example of what it seems like an A-team brand. Mercedes is like worldwide brand, but also like taking this space seriously and saying, you know, I would hope that there's a CMO somewhere at Mercedes who said, okay, guys, this is an important thing to get right. Who are the people? How do we do this that makes sense? Rather than just farming it off to some agency and saying, okay, we don't give a shit about this. Go make us money, right? This feels like the beginnings of brands taking this space seriously and saying, hey, there's a world where we can build a fan base in this space that can expand outward, and we want to do it right. Like, I'm shocked at how good this is. And I think, again, the one thing I said when I first saw this is like, hey, the brands are not going away. There's more coming in. So don't be too frightened by this space right now. Like, there are opportunities. And when you see a brand like Mercedes come in and take it this seriously, you know that there's a lot of opportunity and potential here still.
It's exactly what Gavin said, where it's like you can look at like almost the juxtaposition of the brands that came in because they thought they could make money and the ones that took their time and are taking it seriously. And I would be really curious to know how long Mercedes has been like internally working on their Web3 strategy, because you know, it wouldn't surprise me if late 2021 or early 2022, when it was like peak hype, they were like, all right, let's look into this. But it's taken them this long to actually come to market. Whereas, you know, we saw in late 2021, all of these random, not random, even some large companies come out and be like, oh, we're doing an NFT drop, we're doing something. And it was kind of cool to see them try and get their feet wet, but clearly they were in over their heads. They didn't know what they were doing. And basically, I don't think any like AAA brand or company that came in 2021 has like really stuck around and been successful. This is kind of what success might look like, and I think with the different tiers and expectations, I think that's like NFT projects have had an expectation problem since day one, and I think they're doing a really good job of sort of countering that.
Now, of course, we say all this, and probably they'll be like, "Here's a core collection thing," and people will be like, "It's not good enough," you know. Like, that should be a satellite collection, you know.
Or it'll come out and the cars will have like tires that go like upside down, and they're like, "Oops, we messed up."
Yeah,
the
exactly. There'll be some
yeah, exactly.
Some devastating flaw to bring us all back down to earth.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I mean, in all seriousness, I think this is a really interesting model, and I will certainly be paying attention to Mercedes. And now, please enjoy my conversation with Benny Giang, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is a crypto OG. He's been building since back in the CryptoKitties days. He is going to walk us through EIP-6551. Benny Giang, welcome to Overpriced JPEGs.
Hey, Carly, thanks for having me here. Really excited to be.
I'm excited to have you. For folks who aren't familiar with you, well, first of all, I think Benny, Giang is your handle on Twitter, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
But your name right now is like BG What is it? It's BG. What? I'm getting it wrong now. It's BG ERC-6551. So it is ERC-6551. I've been screwing this up. I keep screwing up ERC versus EIP. So this is not just like a proposal. This is a new token standard ERC-6551.
Yeah, I mean, these are all subtleties. You know, usually things start off as an EIP and then they progress to an ERC. And so, you know, they sometimes are used interchangeably. Sometimes an EIP gets passed quickly and then it's just referred as ERC, or, you know, vice versa.
Okay, well, I feel better then. I've been sometimes talking about this in the context of also 4337, which is that now fully an ERC or an EIP?
Yeah, that's an ERC that passed to mainnet at ETH Denver.
That's right, and that was the announcement that Vitalik made. Damn, so I've been calling both these EIPs, but they're actually more evolved than that. Well, let me give your background for folks real quickly here. So anybody who doesn't maybe know you, Benny, he is the co-founder and partner at Future Primitives, which is an on-chain, maybe you describe it, but it's like, you know, you're building on-chain products and services. Is that fair? Yeah,
essentially we launch startups, you know, projects, technologies for decentralized communities that are fully on chain.
Great. And you were on the founding team of CryptoKitties. You've got some fun pictures of the old CryptoKitties team with our friend of the pod, Mac Flavell, in there. And so you were early in Dapper Labs, and people might know that CryptoKitties is really what ushered in the ERC-721 standard after CryptoKitties essentially broke Ethereum back in 2017. So you have 6-7 years of experience working with different kinds of token standards and playing around with this tech. So, okay, break this down for us. I did this on last week's pod, but I would love to hear in your words how you describe what ERC-6551 is.
Yeah, ERC-6551 is, in the most simplest form, every single NFT now has a wallet. Never before has that been possible. Only us as humans who could create a MetaMask or a Rainbow wallet. But now an NFT has its own wallet, or we call it a token-bound account, and it can basically operate, do transactions, It could hold other assets. It could participate in governance. So it's giving properties to an NFT that takes it way further along from where it is right now, which is like in overpriced JPEG that you can trade, buy, sell, trade. But in the near future, an NFT, you could actually become it. You can use it. You can interact with it. Right now, when you go to any dApp in the ecosystem, you connect as your wallet, right? You pick MetaMask or any other wallet. But very soon, you could connect as your NFT. And so you could go to Uniswap, go to OPENSEA, go to a DeFi protocol and connect as your CryptoKitty or a Cheese Wizard or a Bored Ape. And now you're like a degen trader as a Bored Ape, right? So that's super awesome.
Help me visualize this. We're going to talk a little bit about the kinds of products that can be built on the back of this, but help me visualize this. So if I'm my Meebit, let's say, my Meebit, so here's one question. Can we retroactively attach these wallets to NFTs that are been built as 721s?
Yeah, so
oh, wow.
6551 is super awesome because as of last week, every single NFT on Ethereum mainnet basically got its own wallet. Most people actually don't know about it. I think every NFT that you have in your wallet has an address, a token-bound account. And I actually sent you an NFT inside of one of your NFTs. I tweeted it at you.
I missed that.
Yeah, it's all live. It's on.
What'd you send me? Anything good?
I sent you a Grimes Open Edition.
Oh, hell yeah, I'll take that. I have actually met Grimes. She's a lovely human. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fun. Okay, so do you know which NFT you sent it to? Of mine?
I have to search it up.
It doesn't matter. Okay, so most NFTs now have been assigned this wallet and actually have their own address. How do I find out the address of my NFTs?
Yeah, it's super easy. There's two ways. One is you go to tokenbound.org. You could kind of think of that as a visual Etherscan to check, you connect your wallet and then see all your NFTs, and then it'll show you each one's token-bound accounts. Secondly, I think the easiest way for me is on OpenSea. So I go to any NFT or go to your own NFTs, and when you click into the NFT, you have like the URL, right? OpenSea.io/blah, blah, blah. Just replace OpenSea.io with tokenbound.org for any OpenSea NFT, and then it'll send you straight to Tokenbound and show you the Tokenbound account address.
Wow. Okay. So tokenbound.org, we'll put that in the show notes for folks that they know that that's basically the key phrase that they need to go to find this. And so getting back to this original question. So if you're saying I can log into Uniswap now or anything that I would have maybe otherwise used my MetaMask wallet to log into, how can I do that now directly with my NFT, which is still held in a wallet, correct?
Yeah, so it's important to know that the NFT still is owned by a wallet, and that wallet could be a Ledger, it could be a MetaMask, it could be a Gnosis Safe, whatever wallet you decide to choose. It's just that you have that wallet that owns an NFT that has its own wallet. I know it's kind of like wallet inception.
It's meta, yeah, inception, yeah.
And actually, you could go as deep as you want. You can have an NFT own an NFT 1,000 times.
It's a Russian nesting doll.
Exactly. So, and people are thinking of really cool use cases around that. Like, now that it turns every NFT into like a folder where you could put stuff inside of it. People are getting really creative of like, oh, what if we put like, and the important thing is you could put anything. You could put ETH, USDC, Pepe coins. You could put NFTs in there. You could put 1155s. You could put anything. It basically is a wallet that can hold anything, right?
So I'm still trying to understand this user experience of logging into Uniswap with my Meebit. Yeah.
So this is still, I think we're about a week or so out before we can do that. You'd be using Wallet Connect. So if you go to Uniswap, you click Wallet Connect, generate the QR, you copy that, and then you go to tokenbound.org on the NFT that you want to log in as, and then you paste that in. And then you're basically logged into Uniswap or OpenSea as your NFT.
It's a little clunky.
Yeah,
not the smoothest, not the easiest user experience, let's call it.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, this proposal was launched in ETH Denver, right? So it's only been about 3 months-ish. And there's already been nearly close to 500 developers we have a developer working group. And actually today we have a weekly developer call on Thursdays. And so we have developers from the protocol team at Seaport, Zora, Gnosis, Collabland, like pretty much all the biggest players are jumping on this call and like asking questions or contributing. But yeah, it's still very new, and there's still a lot of UI things that we're working through in terms of logging in as your NFT. And I think maybe in a month or two, it'll start to get to a point where it's really seamless, and you could go to any dApp and connect as your NFT.
So while it feels cool to be like, hey, my Meebit owns Pepe now, why do you see that as valuable beyond the novelty and the fun of it for those of us who are like weird and in this space?
Yeah, I think there's two threads here that are super important. One is, being in the NFT space since the beginning, it's been really interesting to see it kind of go through different cycles. And right now, NFTs have kind of entered this hyper speculative zone where the blur effect, where the artwork is less important, the creators are less important, creativity is less important. It's about buying up all the floor and lending it and all the kind of DeFi-ish things that really make the NFTs more fungible. But our standpoint is like, we love NFTs. We think it should be about the art. It should be about the creators. And so what 6551 or token-bound accounts do is it actually gives strength to the NFT so that it actually becomes more non-fungible, because now an NFT can have its own transaction history. Before, you have your MetaMask and you have your NFTs, and your MetaMask is doing all the transactions, right? Now your NFTs can basically do all the transaction. It has its own history, and that should be accounted for when you're selling it, right? And if you have other things inside of it, other assets, it starts to change the value of it, right? It's not just the floor price. And that's kind of like the bigger conversation of like, hey, NFTs should be about about shared experiences. It should be about reputation. It should be about experiences and friendships and relationships and art. And that's kind of one big thread. And
it should be about your identity. Like this can now be your identity and have its own transaction history. And this Meebit once owned a Bored Ape. Maybe that makes it more valuable amongst other Meebits. I don't know. That's really interesting. The way you framed that, I think, was fascinating in terms of it sounds like almost a shot across the bow at Blur, who is financializing the market. How much is that being actively talked about among you or other developers who are building this as sort of like, we got to rush this out because we need to counter what's happening in this space?
Yeah, I mean, respect to all product builders out there. Like, I've been in the startup space for nearly 8-9 years, and like even before crypto. And so, like, Blur itself, they've done a great job. They did what they needed to do. They found a niche and they doubled down or tripled down, right? But as Benny, coming from like working with a team that coined 721 and NFTs and CryptoKitties, it just felt like it was in some ways a digression of like what we were supposed to do with NFTs. So yeah, I think like to each their own. Some people see like ERC-20s as a way to do meme coins. Some people see NFTs as a way to like flip and trade these things in a hyper speculative environment. But for us, it's like, there's a lot more you can do with NFTs. The identity is important. This is actually the first building block, which will open up an entire like stack of amazing things. One such thing is very soon, and you could use your NFT to talk to other NFTs using decentralized messaging. So we've actually ran an experiment with a company called Tribes, There's also XMTP and MailChain. And we actually I logged in as my Zuki, and I sent a message to like a t-shirt NFT using decentralized messaging. And so right now, if you're looking for somebody who has a Clone X, you have to find their Twitter, get in their DMs, or find their Discord. You have to kind of have this little dance, but very soon you can just like, hey, I want to message 123.clonex.eth. Just send a message, and it's on chain.
And where does that message show up for them? Do they have to be logged into this this particular app?
Yeah, there's probably going to be a client. This is really, really early stuff. That there is probably going to be a website, Tribes or something. You log in, or you can go to Zuki.com or something, and then there's like a little chat thing on the bottom, and you just talk to any Azuki straight up on the Azuki website, as an example, right? But once an NFT has its own Ethereum identity, which is a wallet, then you could start chatting, then you could start actually programming the NFT to do on-chain actions. It could be like performing MEV or doing other things. And then we kind of get in this territory where, I've been talking about a lot on Twitter. It's about this idea of NPCs, right? So in games, they have
non-playable
NPCs,
characters.
Yeah, right, where they're important. Otherwise, you go into like Diablo and like there's no characters around, right? Just animals. And so NPCs have been really important in populating these empty worlds. And in that same kind of thread, the way we see NPCs, we actually call it networked playable characters. And so what it does is it converts the NFT now that it has its own account, and it can talk and can do actions on chain, have its own like bank account, and can vote on governance. That when you pair that with AI, we think the NFTs convert into the NPCs, and they populate the empty worlds, which we call right now metaverses or autonomous worlds, right? We all know with metaverses, they're pretty much empty most of the time, right? And we think that NFTs can actually fill that gap and populate those worlds.
This is so exciting. This is the shit that like I like. You know what I mean? And it's been such a it just feels like it's been such a dark time, and bags are down and people are cynical, but like these are the kinds of advancements that remind us why we believe in this vision, in my opinion. And I'm sure it's going to be clunky for a long time still, because I'm like picturing, like the messaging thing is so cool, but I'm like, oh God, that's going to be, I don't need another messaging app. Like I don't need another thing I have to log into to get a message. But I know we'll get to that point where like the idea that I just know your NFT character and therefore I can send you a message directly via knowing that NFT character. I mean, as somebody who has an NFT, I want to just message people directly through the NFT. I don't like having a Discord. Like I don't want to have, so I don't have a Discord. So my head goes both places, which is like, oh God, it's going to be clunky for a while, but also in a bigger picture way, you just know that this is building towards something. It's funny. I said this earlier, actually, in this episode, which is we are still in that phase where it is hard to feel like you have a really strong argument against the cynics of the world, right? Where it's like, well, why does that need to be an NFT? I was talking about this in the context of something that Pudgy Penguins is doing. And it's like, I can't give you a satisfying answer if you don't believe in this vision, but like, because it's cool that you own this thing and it's interoperable and you can take it anywhere and it mirrors the kind of ownership you can have in the real world. Like, because that feels better than it being stuck on this platform, than it being stuck in the Club Penguin game world without any ability to leave. And with some of what you're saying here, it's similarly like, I don't know how to tell you, if you're a skeptic, I don't know how to tell you that this is cool, but I can tell you it is, and it's building towards something. Like, is that how you feel, or do you feel more articulate about it than I do?
No, I feel the same excitement. Like lately, I just wake up and I'm like, dude, this is gonna change everything. I think the timing, like if something like this came out, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, it wouldn't have gotten enough steam, or people wouldn't have cared, because a lot of people at that time didn't even know what NFTs were, right? I think we're at this perfect timing where we had the explosion of the NFTs in the last year or two, and now we're hitting this curve where all the blue chips and everyone's kind of like figuring out like, oh, what are we actually about? Like what else can we do with NFTs? And a lot of it are people, what ends up happening is the top 10 blue chip projects who have the most money, they can hire a development team, they can write smart contracts and add utility for their collections, right? But what happens to like the one, single developer who's in the basement who's like, I want to launch an NFT, but I don't really know Solidity. And so their NFT ends up being like very basic and like can't really do much. It's just a picture, while the top 10 start to get all the functionality. And in some ways, like the way we see 6551 or token bound account is it equalizes the floor, right? It makes every NFT have its own address from CryptoKitties to whatever it's launching next week. And with that property, now you can chat with every NFT. Every NFT can be programmed with AI. Every NFT can start to operate as like an agent on chain. These NFTs can populate these empty worlds. And we get to a territory where we're moving way, way, way past buy-sell trade, right? It goes into this territory, as I've explained, become, use, and interact. And that's the whole point, right? Because if the topic is all about, hey, isn't NFT just a JPEG that now you can buy, sell, trade? Then we're never going to get anywhere. We have to kind of like craft this whole new mental shift of like, NFTs are not even JPEGs anymore, right? They're like, I don't know, they're like robots or something. They're bots.
Overpriced AI.
Yeah.
What is the... spell that out for me a little bit more when you say it can be programmed with AI. How does adding a wallet to an NFT allow it to be programmed with AI? And what does that even mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think there's two ways to apply AI here, right? One is, a more simpler one is an NFT can have a Twitter account and like shit post or whatever, right? Like using the AI to absorb data and information and then output tweets, right? So that's more like the social side. The second side is, I think we all know that there are bots on the blockchain, right? Bots that perform different actions.
Bots on the blockchain? Yeah.
Who would have believed that? Like, but these bots perform different actions, arbitrage, all that type of stuff. And so I think, the way I see bots is it's a program or an algorithm that's performing an action that usually is to make money. If you pair that along with an NFT that has a visual component and has its own wallet, that means that the NFT, you can set it loose, right? You could feel it with 10 ETH and then let that then define the job or the task of this NFT or NPC, and then be like, okay, your job as a dead fellas, as my dead fellas, is to go and extract MEV. And then I'll program that using AI. And then every time you win, like a searching, you're able to like acquire capital through MEV. You can shit post on Twitter and be like, I beat you all, right? As the dead fellas, right? So that's kind of like the early building blocks. But I'm sure there'll be a lot more programming that will happen where people can like Zapier, like click on a few things and add properties to the NFT.
Okay, final question. So the example I gave last week, actually, no, I've got two more questions. I apologize. The example I gave last week that felt obvious or interesting was like, okay, you're a gaming character and now you're collecting wearables, you're collecting things as you play a game, and those are now accruing to your wallet. And now you can bundle sell that NFT with all of its wearables and loot that it's collected in this game. That feels like a very clear-cut, useful, that will happen example. Do you have another one, or do you have a preferred example of how you see these wallets being used in the future?
Yeah, there's a lot, and I'll give you three that are really good. So the first one is actually one that we're building. It's called Sapiens. It's a project with Jeff Staple, and it's all about the idea of a PFP character that can change outfits as many times as you want during the day. So it's related to digital fashion. So instead of, as a game character searching for items, it's more about, hey, I want to like swap clothes and do it on chain and gasless, and I want to change clothes 10 times a day and not pay gas. And if there's like a brand collab, I'll flex it, right? So that's one big one that we're seeing a lot of people centering around. Number two is DAO memberships. So you've probably seen FWB or other DAOs launch a membership card. And what 6551 does is now the DAO membership card has its own wallet, right, or account. And when you participate in the DAO, on-chain or off-chain actions, right now you may get some soulbound tokens to your wallet or POAPs or whatever, but they're all tied to your wallet. And so when you sell the membership card, it creates this like separation of the asset. So now what we're seeing from a lot of DAO, the people who are in the working group, is a DAO membership NFT, and all the POAPs, all the soulbound tokens, the reputation sits inside of the membership card. And then you could even update the artwork or evolve it to show like, hey, Carly has a golden membership card because she's really committed and engaged, right? And then number 3 is something that we saw recently from the working group. It's called Sophomon. It's actually really interesting. It's, Clippy, way back in the day.
Yes, the paperclip.
Yes.
From, was it PowerPoint or something?
Yes, like all the Microsoft Office. So someone built a Chrome extension called Sophomon where it would put a little cute bunny on the bottom right of your screen, and that bunny is your NPC, right? And you could kind of play with it, and it has its own wallet, and it goes with you on all the different websites, like Clippy, and you could get it to basically transact and do things on different dApps. And so that to me, is like I've always thought metaverses were a little bit odd. Like we're going to see this future where we're all just going to sit with our goggles. But really, I think this is like a reality that is, super fascinating. We have our cute little NFT character that's on the corner, and it's like interacting with us, and, we send it on little quests. So, those are kind of the 3 things that we're seeing pop up. And there's a lot more definitely in the working group as well.
I love it. Okay. My actual last question has to do with how you see this interacting with ERC-6337. God, these.
I know.
Let's just name it let's name it Eloise or something.
Yeah.
Something that's easier. And as a refresher for folks, and I don't even think we'll have to have you back on to do a whole just deep dive on ERC-4337. Like, my understanding of it is it enables things like, subscriptions, and somebody else can pay the gas for you. If you're a brand and you want to do a gas-free mint, you can, say we'll cover the gas, and that's something that's enabled by 4337 or bundling also. So talk to me about how you see these two interacting with each other or bolstering each other.
That's a good question. So I'll clarify a few things. Some people think ERC-6551 is a token standard. It's not a token standard. Like 721, ERC-20, ERC-1155, those are token standards.
That is quite confusing.
Yeah, I know.
Why? Okay, continue.
Yeah, so like ERC is just any proposal, and sometimes these proposals are token based. Some of them are.
But the proposal should be an EIP then, because that's the P stands for proposal.
Yeah. Well,
right?
EIP,
Ethereum
ERC,
improvement proposal.
Yeah. Well, either EIP or ERC, they can be applied to different like categories. It could be token standard. It could be whatever. And so people are thinking like, some people are like, well, I guess I decide to launch a 721 NFT or 6551 NFT or whatever. But it's not an NFT. It's just
very helpful to understand.
I know, it's kind of like a confused. They should probably like have different like naming conventions for like, oh, this is a token standard. This is like.
Let's just say marketers have not been the driving force behind Ethereum, which thank God, but it does show up every so often.
Wait till we reach 6-digit numbers. So I don't even know how that's going to work. ERC 100,056, whatever. That's going to be insane. So yeah, they definitely need some help from you and your community.
Well, Amanda Cassett is our hero. She's the one been holding on the fort as the Ethereum marketer, trying to whack them all these problems.
Absolutely.
Okay, but continue. This is important. So tell me how these two ERCs that are not token standards interact with one another.
Yeah, ERC 4337, the word that people just use is just account abstraction. And then the 6551, the word we would use is token bound accounts. So the best way to think about how they work together is we actually gave every NFT a 4337 wallet or account. So, so that's essentially what everyone has. Yeah.
I think I just had an aha moment, but now I'm trying to decide if I did. The idea with account abstraction, and the reason it has felt powerful to me, but maybe I'm misinterpreting what that means within the context of 4337, is right now I have this problem, which is like, as I've accrued more NFTs, I've wanted to use my wallet less. And I would like to live in a world where our wallets dictate a lot of what we do online. I know I get into this website and I get into the VIP section of the website with my wallet, but I don't want to connect my wallet to damn anything because I'm always so freaking afraid that something's going to go wrong and I'm going to get hacked and I'm going to get my stuff stolen from me. So account abstraction felt like this powerful way to potentially like access websites and things, but keeping my assets protected. Is that a valid way to think about it? And does 4337 have anything to do with that?
Yes. So I would rewind. So in the space of the last 6, 7, 8 years, we've all been using public-private key wallets, right? You got to save your seed words, all these things. That's what we call a EOA wallet, right? And so that's what everyone's been using. And we all know the onboarding problems and the challenges and the safety things, right? You lose your keys, blah, blah, blah. So EOA wallets is one category. And then the other one now is account abstraction, which is the whole mission of it is to get rid of public-private keys. Because, you know, the whole mission of AA or account abstraction is to make onboarding so much more easier and make it and the account is a lot more safer. And not only that, you can program it, and then it also opens up potential of like subsidized gas through bundlers and all that. So its whole mission is through onboarding, is to target onboarding, make it easier, make it safer, and not subject the next 10 years of mainstream users to public-private key, seed word, you know, all of that. We'll be like kind of like the old folks, you know, where it's like, oh, you know, back in my day, this is how I did email, right? Like that's gonna be us like telling the next generation, but they're gonna be like, oh yeah, no, I just went to the website and I clicked create an account and I got my wallet, right? So that's the whole mission of 4337. And the way to think about 6551 is it's like the fusion between 4337 and NFTs together. That's kind of like the baby that is born is 6551.
Okay, so I understand that. I still think I need a better understanding of 4337, but that's not for this episode because we are already at 30 minutes. Benny, this was awesome. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm really serious. I would like to have you back probably regularly because Absolutely. This is a side of NFTs that is hard to understand by reading documents. Like I do not have the brain that can like read the documentation on this stuff and be like, yes, let me summarize for the people. Yeah. And you've done a really good job. So I appreciate you being here and
awesome.
Would love to have you back.
Thank you so much, Carly. Happy to go come back and talk about all sorts of things NFTs. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.